Alright, mini bike action. John here again, behind the scenes as usual. Probably one of the older, at 62 years old, I'm probably one of the older uh, enthusiasts on this. But you know, with age comes wisdom, they say. That's what they say. Anyway, put all my Grom plastic back on it. I love this plastic because I'm not going to race it no more. I've decided. I had to bulge. I had to heat gun this spot right here and bulge it so that it fit my enlarged air boot. But it worked out okay. I had cut it on the other plastic when I was racing it, but I didn't want to cut into this, so I thought a little bulge would be nice. You know, one of the little things I like that I did to this bike was I used these bumper bolts, they're called, or bumper screws, but they have an aluminum washer, a thick aluminum washer, and then they have a tapered seat on them, and then you got a tapered Allen socket. Gives it a nice finished look to me. You know, it just makes things look a little more tight. I thought, you know, looks good down there. So anyway, that was just a little thing I wanted to say there. Oh, I wanted to go back and talk about vibrations on these things. You know, a lot of the vibration, even if your engine's tight, and like I have the third mount, mine are bolted to either hole on either side. They're a little L bracket that comes down, bolts to the back bolt of the engine. And then I used a 10 millimeter bolt. I drilled out the bottom mount, 10 millimeter. The top one I've never touched because I really felt like the problem was more localized on the bolt nearest the sprocket. So I think, and that's where mine would always break. So I just went with the 10 millimeter there and those two little ear brackets. And I've abused it and it's been holding up great. Anyway, on vibration, part of the reason is even if the motor's bolted in tight, because of the way the foot pegs are out on these posts, they're, you know, your stock pegs sit way out there and they're a long way from the source of the vibration. And that tends to give it a tuning fork action, which will actually harmonically, it'll vibrate harmonically because of the length of that, you know. So you're getting a certain amount of amplification of smaller vibrations that are a lot bigger when they come out to the foot pegs. So in that, being that in mind, as long as everything's tight and good there, now you got to deal with everything on the bike that buzzes, because the bike is full of buzzes. Things like, you know, when they put these bikes, when they designed the Vader, they took a Honda Grom and they took everything off it didn't need. Okay, I mean everything. The Honda has little brackets to hold these on. I put some on there, but you know, we don't need those. Leave them off. You know, holders that hold cables inside, things that mount stuff. Everything they found a way to get a little cheaper by deleting it. And then the parts they did keep, they made sure that each and every part was made cheaper. As cheap as they could get it. I mean, right down to the paint that's on the frames of these. You can tell it's not a high gloss. It's not a high gloss paint job. It's like they used some bottom of the barrel bargain paint that they had left over from something else, and they used it to paint the frames or something. You know, they just found ways to go as cheap as possible. And things like vibrating the tail light. When I got mine, it vibrated, it buzzed, blah, blah, you know, and so the parts inside were not tightened down, and it didn't have a rubber gasket around the seat where it screws in there. So I did that. Now the taillight's solid, doesn't buzz. The headlight, you know, they only snapped, the components inside were just snapped together. They didn't have, and there's no seal. Where it's sealed and where the wires go in, it's a big open spot. So I went through and I did all that. I closed in that thing with the big rubber boot, sealed it all up, put a silicone seal around the entire fixture where it snaps together, and sealed the headlight up so I don't get any moisture in here when I'm washing the bike and stuff. But these are all little things that cause buzzing and vibration, and you have to go through every part of your bike and find it. Like things like the bodywork. I used a two-sided tape, thin strips of two-sided tape between the bodywork and there. Solids that up, makes it quieter, and everything adds up. I mean, if you got hoses or things on the inside that are dangling and they're up against the back of this, buzzing, all that stuff adds up and makes noise. So you have to go around, if you want to make it sound quiet and sound like a Honda, you got to go around and pay attention to all those individual parts. So that was my little tip on vibration. I did do something to it. I put a different, I had to cut the old stand off because of racing. I didn't want it dragging, and I couldn't stand the way it went down. The bracket goes down so low. So I made this piece that bolts. I took an old kickstand piece I had. I wanted to use this old one before I cut up, and did anything with the new one. I used this old stand mount, and I made it so it bolts on the bottom of the engine there. And what's cool about it is I don't have to have this piece of wood or anything, but it holds the bike up nicely, and then when it's up, it sits in there real clean, nice, and so something I had to try. I had to at least try it, and I like just the way it fits, tighter. It looks more part of the bike instead of dangling down there like an afterthought. Yeah, and aside from I'm not going to race it no more. The only thing I got left to do is I got that 55mm stroke crankshaft. I got this baby. I kind of expected the crankshaft to go bad. Oops, you can't see that way, can you? Kind of expected the crankshaft to go bad by now after 2 seasons, not quite 2 seasons of racing. And just riding it around at really high RPM like I do. I would have thought the stock crank would have gone, but it's not. It's really nice. It's still fine. The whole bottom end is in excellent shape, even after it's been just wrung out for hours on end practically. So anyway, I got this 55mm stroke crankshaft that's going to end up going in it, and I'll let you guys see that. And I got to take the engine apart. I don't have to, but I want to take it apart and inspect it. Make sure that everything's all working properly in there and the oiling's getting to it right. I mean, obviously it's working right, but I want to match up some of the ports. And the exhaust port on these V2 heads is really small in there. It's not even as big, seems like, as the factory head. So I want to do some things to that. So I am going to take it apart one more time to do, like I said, to do the crankshaft, to inspect, replace anything inside that it needs, and then I'm